go back in the woolly swamp, well, you better not go at night. There's things out there in the middle of the woods that make a strong man die for fright. Things that crawl, things that fly, things that creep around on the ground. And they say the ghost of Lucius Clay gets up and he walks around. And I couldn't believe it, I just had to find out for myself. And I couldn't conceive it, cause I never would listen to nobody else. And I couldn't believe it, I just had to find out for myself. Cause there's some things in this world you just can't explain. The old man lived out in Wooley Swamp, way back in Booger Woods. He never did do a lot of harm in the world, but he never did do no good. People didn't think too much of him. They all thought he acted funny. The old man didn't care about people anyway. All he cared about was his money. Well, he'd stuff it all down in the mason jars and he'd bury it all around. And on certain nights when the moon was right, well, he'd dig it up out of the ground. Well, he'd pour it all out on the floor of his shack and run his fingers through it. Yo, Lucius Clay was a greedy old man, and that's all there was to it. And if you ever go back in the woolly swamp, well, you better not go at night. There's things out there in the middle of the woods that make a strong man die for fright. Things that crawl, things that fly, things that creep around on the ground. And they say the ghost of Lucius Clay gets up and he walks around. And I couldn't believe it, I just had to find out for myself. And I couldn't receive it, cause I never would listen to nobody else. And I couldn't believe it, I just had to find out for myself. There's some things in this world you just can't explain. The Gable boys was white trash, lived over on Carver's Creek. Well, they were mean as a snake and sneaky as a cat and belligerent when they speak. One night the oldest brother said, "Y'all meet me in the woolly swamp later. We'll take old Lucius's money and then we'll feed him to the alligators." Well, they found the old man out in the back with a shovel in his hand and 13 rusty mason jars he just dug up out of the sand. And they all went crazy and they beat the old man. They picked him up off of the ground. They threw him in the swamp and stood there and laughed as the black water sucked him down. Then they turned around and went back to the shack, picked up the money and ran. They hadn't gone nowhere when they realized that they were running in quicksand. And they struggled and they screamed and they couldn't get away. And just before they went under, you could hear that old man laughing in a voice as loud as thunder. Oh, that's been 50 years ago. You can go by there yet. But there's a spot in the yard in the back of that shack where the ground is always wet. And on certain nights when the moon is right, down by that dark footpath, well, you can hear 3 young men screaming, and you can hear one old man laugh. Let me tell you a story about me, the last bit. Building on a dead-end street, I found skeleton bones outside. In the pavement there was torture chambers. Down in the basement, cobwebs hanging over my head. And music being played by the Grateful Dead. There was a sign on the door that can't be missed. Read enter, but at your own risk. People have been reported going in the haunted house and never again seen coming out. Well, you ask me if it's true, I'll leave it up to you. Here's an invite, I hope to see you tonight. We sent out invitations for weeks and weeks. We invited any all kinds of creeps like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the Addams Family and the Monster Five, with the Invisible Man. Where can he be? You know he got inside the party free. One of these days he's gonna catch him in heaven. I'm sneaking the free for being a booty bandit. Frankenstein was there with some crazy looking chick. I think he said her name was Food. You wanna stick? She had a big fat head, skinny body. But we caught her alone, let alone at a party. E1 was there with the monster crew. I seen everybody there except you. Oh, why didn't you come? Or wasn't you prepared? Or could it be that you were scared? Because it's just not fair that you couldn't be there, because you really missed a lot. I'm telling you, really brought the place down at the Haunted House of Rock. And I couldn't believe it. I just had to find out for myself, and I couldn't conceive it, 'cause I never would listen to nobody else. And I couldn't believe it. I just had to find out for myself. There's some things in this world you just can't explain. There's some things in this world you just can't explain.